How you doing there? Welcome back to Babble on Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Yud Gimel, Daf 13 of Shechitah Chullin. Friends, Daf 13 is awesome. The first part of Daf Yud Gimel, we discussed determining the kavanah for minors. Interesting shaila. Is there a way to determine kavanah for a kohen? For example, as we know from the first Mishnah in Shechitah Zvachim, korban is slaughtering a korban, you have to have kavanah, whether it's ma'akev or not, whether it's talking about a chatas, who can remember what the other one is already? I think it was a korban pesach, right? Chatas or korban pesach versus any of the other korbanis. Even the other korbanis, it's still, even though it's kosher, but it won't be ola l'bayla l'shem chova. Anyways, so for example, if a kohen is going to slaughter a korban, so to determine kavanah, is there a way to determine whether a kohen has proper kavanah when slaughtering, let's say, a korban ola, that he actually has in mind that it's a korban ola? So that's an interesting shaila. Are there ways that we could actually confirm that a kohen has proper kavanah? Interesting shaila over there. The next topic we shall discuss is Shechitah of an oved kochavim. Shechitah of an oved kochavim. What happens if an oved kochavim slaughters an animal? Kosher, not kosher, what happens? And finally, can you shecht animals at night? Can you do it at night? What do you think, friends? Can you slaughter an animal at night? Well, stick with me till the end, and we will find out. Friends, come join me. Let's enjoy ourselves and learn Daf Yud Gimel of Shechitah Chullin. Friends, we begin Daf Yud Beis Amid Beis. We are about 8 or so lines from the bottom. There's 2 dots over there. Amr Reb Chia bar Abba, Bai Reb Yochanan. It says Reb Chia bar Abba that his Rebbe, Reb Yochanan, asked the following question, was pondering the following ponder. Kohen yesh lo machshava or ein lo machshava? Does a kohen have machshava or not? Friends, before we move even one letter further, I want to explain a few things. So there is, actually no, take that back. Let's move forward a few more letters. Okay, so this kohen yesh lo machshava ein lo machshava. Rabbi Yochanan asks, does a kohen have machshava or not? Amr Rabbi Ami. Rabbi Ami says to Reb Chia bar Abba, "V'tiboyle maise." And Rabbi Ami asks Reb Chia bar Abba, why is Rabbi Yochanan, who is also Rabbi Ami's Rebbe, why is Rabbi Yochanan wondering only about machshava? What about maise? There's mamash we have over here in the sugya machshava, dibur, and maise. Okay, so let's talk about machshava, dibur, and maise l'maise. But no, this is not a shir on Tanya. Now, let's say you have, for example, and this is going to be an example that is going to come up in the Gemara. Let's say you have a korban ola. Now, as we know from the parak Ezu Mekomen and Shechitah Zvachim, kochavim shchitason batzafon, that a korban ola needs to be slaughtered in the north of the Azara. Now, let's say a kohen comes into the Azara to do Shechitah, and his sheep is in the south of the Azara. So, the kohen now goes to the sheep that's in the south of the Azara and brings it to the north of the Azara to slaughter it. Because a sheep needs to be, because a korban ola needs to be slaughtered in the north of the Azara. So in that's a maisa, right? In that action itself, an onlooker, an observer would be able to see this and saying, okay, I see what's going on here. The kohen is taking this sheep that's in the south of the Azar, and because he's assuming that it's a korban ola, and korban ola is kochavim, and it needs to be in the north of the Azara, I see what's going on. Because it's a korban ola, he's bringing the ola from the korban, from the animal from the south of the Azara, he's bringing it to the north of the Azara so that he could slaughter it there. So there is an action that is clearly connected to his kavanah. That the kohen is demonstrating by moving the animal from the south of the Azar to the north of the Azar, that he intends to slaughter it as, at the very least, as a kochavim. But anyways, I guess if it's a male sheep in its first year, so it can't be a chatas and it can't be an asham either. Anyways, so he's demonstrating that at the very least it is kochavim and that he's going to be slaughtering it as a korban olah. Now that alone is not what we're calling here maaseh. In addition, he also broadcasts verbally his intention, which is, I am going to be slaughtering this animal as a korban olah. So the kohen here has very thoroughly demonstrated with both actions and words that his intention is to slaughter this animal as a korban olah. He moved it from the south of the Azara to the north of the Azara, which is where a korban olah needs to be slaughtered. And he said, I am going to be slaughtering this animal as a korban olah. So that's the maaseh that we're talking about. Machshava would be, if let's say the animal was already in the north, and the kohen now slaughters the animal to be a korban olah, and he says, I'm slaughtering this animal as a korban olah. The thing is, what's the action that he did? Shechitah. There's nothing unique about the shechitah of this animal, right? The animal was already in the north. They didn't have to move it anywhere. He took a knife, sliced the throat of the animal. There's nothing unique to that shechitah. That could have been it's the same shechitah for an olah, for a shlavim, for a osham, for a toda, korban pesach, whatever. It's all the same shechitah. Take a knife, slice the throat open. So this would not be a maaseh. There's no unique action here that would indicate, that would demonstrate that this has anything, that there's anything uniquely olah about this. He is, however, broadcasting his kavanah. He is, however, saying, I am slaughtering this animal as a korban olah. That is what we call machshav. That he's broadcasting his machshav. At least the Perush Rashi, I'm going to explain this sugya according to Rashi. That machshava is simply broadcasting his machshava, his kavanah. He says, I'm slaughtering this animal as a korban olah. So we have maaseh, which is when he does something that's obviously olah-y, such as moving, right? He's moving the animal from the south of the Azara to the north of the Azara because it's a korban olah. So he's taking an action that is uniquely olah, while at the same time saying, I am going to slaughter this animal as a korban olah. And then there's also the machshava alone, which is just saying, I am going to slaughter this animal as a korban olah, while not doing anything that's uniquely olah-y. There is, however, a middle ground, and that would be if he moved the animal from the south of the Azara to the north of the Azara, but didn't say what he was doing. So in terms of his actions demonstrate that he's doing an olah-oriented action, and therefore we can conclude that his kavanah is to slaughter this animal as an olah, and that is why he's moving the animal from the south of the Azar to the north of the Azar. So he's doing an olah-oriented action by moving the animal from the south to the north, but he didn't tell us that. He didn't broadcast his kavanah, his intention that he's going to be slaughtering this animal as an olah. That's kind of a middle ground that we'll be discussing as well. With that introduction, I will take a shluk of tea and we'll go weiter. Let us start over again from the beginning of the Gemara, now that we have all the pieces that we need. Says Rabbi Chia bar Abba in the name of Rabbi Yechanan, Kohen yesh lo machshava, ein lo machshava. Does a kohen have machshava or not? If a kohen, right now that we have all of this additional background and context, if a kohen simply says, right, the animal's already in the north of the Azar, he simply says, I'm going to slaughter this animal as an olah, and then he slices the neck open. There's nothing unique about the slice, but he did broadcast his intention. So is that valid or not? Do we say that okay, there was a proper kavanah here, it's lishma, and the animal was slaughtered properly? Rabbi Ami says to Rabbi Chia bar Abba, why is Rabbi Yochanan only asking about machshava, why does he not ask about maisa? If the kain has maisa, if he walks the animal from the south to the north, while also broadcasting that he's going to slaughter this animal as an ola. Mashna maisa de lo kami boile. Why doesn't Rabbi Yochanan ask about maisa? I'll tell you why. Ditnan yesh len maisa. Because there's a Mishnah in Masechta Kelim that we're about to see in a minute that says that katans have maisa. And therefore Rabbi Yochanan is not pondering about whether or not ketanim have maisa, because they do. If he brings the animal from the south of the Azara to the north of the Azara and says that his intention is to slaughter it as an ola, that is valid. However, machshava nami loiti boiled, it's not ein len machshava. However, that same Mishnah that we're about to see says also that they don't have machshava. I'll tell you what, I'll read you the Mishnah. I'll read you that part of the Mishnah right now before we even learn the whole Mishnah. The Mishnah says, yesh len maisa ve'ein len machshava. I just read you from the Mishnah that they have maisa, they don't have machshava. So Rabbi Ami says, I don't understand Rabbi Yochanan's ponder. He's wondering whether ketanim have machshava, but I don't understand. He's specifically asking about machshava. He's not asking about maisa. Why isn't he not asking about maisa? Well, probably because there's a Mishnah that says that ketanim have maisa. Well, that same Mishnah says that they don't have machshava. So what's he wondering about? Of course they don't have machshava. So if Rabbi Yochanan's aware of the Mishnah, then he shouldn't have any questions about machshava. If he's unaware of the Mishnah, so then why not ask about maisa? Ditnan, what's this Mishnah? Ha'olin v'arimon v'egos, acorns, pomegranates, and walnuts. Shechokakum tinokis lamud boen offer o she'eskinum l'chaf moznaim. You have a minor, you have a cotton, and before I don't know what games kids play now, but during the time of the Mishnah, kids would play with acorns. And I'm sure that they had a good time. So they would play with acorns and pomegranates and walnuts. So if you have a kid and he takes, let's say, an acorn and he's hollowing it out so that he can fill it up with dirt. So he's doing an action that right that you look at it, you're like, wow, okay, here's a kid. He found a good acorn. He's hollowing it out. Obviously, he's doing it to make a receptacle so that he can hold dirt for his game, to play his games. Or he's going to make it into some kind of scale or something to put things in measure or whatever. And so the shaila is, can we tell based on his action that this should be considered a vessel to be makabel tumah, right? If it's a kli, if it's a vessel, it will be able to be makabel tumah. So the shaila is, but however, in order for something to be a vessel, there would have to be some kind of proper intention, let's call it, for it to be a vessel. So the question is, this child taking this acorn and cleaning it out so that it can be used for putting mud in it, does that now make it a kli, a vessel to be makabel tumah? So then it's not alone acorns, varimon, pomegranates, vaegos, walnuts. Shechokakum tinokis, that the kids are cutting them out, scooping them out, clearing them out. Lamud bo, and offer to be able to put dirt in it and play their games. O she'eskinum l'chaf moznayim, or connected it to a scale to be able to weigh stuff with. So we say timein mipnei sheish lehen maise. So we say that they are timeim because they have maise. That not only did, now as Rashi points out, that lefi Shechitah, this would be, not only did they etch it out and clear it out to be able to hold dirt in it, but they also said that, oh wow, this is going to be great for me playing my games. I could get some great dirt in here. So they did something that an observer would be able to tell, like, okay, they are making these kalim essentially to be able to play with. And they're saying, wow, this is going to be amazing. I'm going to have so much fun with these toys that I'm making for myself. So we say, Tmeyin, they could be Mekabel Tuma now. Mipnei sheyesh len maise, because Kita'anim, they could do a maise, and here they did a maise. They did something that was uniquely vesselly, while also broadcasting that their intention was to effectively be making a vessel. Ve'ein lehem machshava, but they don't have machshava alone. For example, if they found a scooped out acorn and they picked it up and they said, oh wow, I'm going to use this for my games, that would not make it a vessel because they didn't do anything to make it into a vessel. They just picked it up, they're looking at it and say, this would be a great toy. That would not make it into a vessel. So we see from this Mishnah already that Kitanim have Maiseh and they don't have Machshava. So what's Rabbi Yochanan's question? Omer le, so Rabbi Chia bar Abba responds, Machshave gredasa lo kamibaya le. Rabbi Chia bar Abba says, yeah, Rabbi Yochanan, you're correct. You're correct. To simply ask about if they have machshava, the Mishnah says no. Rabbi Yochanan didn't need to ponder that question. The answer is no. A minor does not have simple machshava. What he was wondering, friends, about was that middle ground. Friends, do you remember I mentioned that there was a middle ground as well? For example, if the Kohen takes the animal from the south of the Azara to the north of the Azara, but does not say that he's doing so because it's a Korban Ola, so he demonstrated with his action that he intends to slaughter this as an Ola, but never actually said so. So here also, what Rabbi Yochanan is pondering, what he's wondering about is, what if in this case, this child finds an acorn and he's now clearing it out, and he's, who knows, he's improvising some kind of tools and stuff, or maybe he finds a screwdriver, who knows what he finds, and or maybe some kind of sharp knife that his parents don't know he's playing with. Anyways, so he's busy scooping it out, and anybody who's watching, you can see, oh wow, this kid found an acorn, he's making a toy out of it, but he never says that that's what he's doing. That's what Rabbi Yochanan is wondering about. Kikami boyle, what Rabbi Yochanan is wondering about is machshavto nikeres mitoch maisav. What happens in a situation where his intention is clear from his actions, but he doesn't say so himself? He's clearing out this acorn, and clearly he's making a toy out of it, but he never says that he's making a toy out of it. Can we assume, okay, this is a toy, this is a vessel, this is a kli, it's mekabel tuma? Kigon, for example, davakaima ola bidarum. For example, if this animal that was going to be slaughtered as a korban ola, which we've been talking about, this animal is in the south of the Azore, the asyua bitsofin, and this kohen brings the animal to the north of the Azore, which is where olas belong. V'shachata, and he slaughters it. The question is, that action, which is very ola-centric, is that enough for us to conclude that his kavanah, that his intention also was to slaughter it as an ola, even though he didn't say so himself? What happens? Mida asya bitzofin v'shochato ichvin lo. Do we say, well, look, this kid saw that the animal was in the south of the Azara. He says, wait, he's saying to himself, he didn't tell us, but we're reading this situation as this kid said to himself, wait, this is a korban ola. It can't be in the south. I got to bring it to the north. So he was clearly intending to slaughter it as an ola. Or Dilma, or perhaps makamudlo isramile. Maybe there was no room in the south of the Azara, and therefore he moved it to the north of the Azara for practical space reasons. He did not actually have intention, though, to be slaughtering it as an ola. So that was what Rabbi Yochanan was pondering about. He was wondering, in a scenario like that, what do we say? Do we say that would be considered enough and it's a kosher shechitah, or not? Honami amra Rabbi Yochanan chadazimna. But the Gemara says, wait. But Rabbi Yochanan already scratched that itch. Rabbi Yochanan already answered this question. This now we have another Mishnah. This Mishnah is from Masechta Machshirin. Masechta Machshirin. What an exciting Masechta. I can't wait to get to Masechta Machshirin. God willing, I'll get there in probably about, maybe 14, 15 months or so. It's at the end of Tyrus. I'm at the very beginning of Tyrus. It's unbelievable, Tyrus. A lot of work, but it's unbelievable. Taka, a Mishnah that I learned, I think 2 days ago, is going to be shaykh for this daf. We here at Babble on Talmud are going to benefit and are going to win because, thank God, I learned, I think it's the second Mishnah, I think, in Masechta Kalim, just the other day. We're gonna get there soon. Very exciting stuff about Tumas Masa. Ooh, can't wait to share this with you. First, tea. Machshirin talks about being machshir lekabel tumah. The pasuk says v'chiyuton mayim al zera v'nafal minivlasam olav, something like that. That once you disconnect food from the ground, if a sheretz falls on it, the food is not mikabel tumah. In order for a dead sheretz to be mitame, this food that's been disconnected from the ground, the food must first come in contact with one of the 7 liquids. Yad shochad dam, right? Yayin, dam, or whatever. Yayin, dvash. What's the shin? Shemen. What's the ches? Cholav. What's the tes? Tal, dew. Dam is then dam, blood, and mayim, water. So there are 7 liquids. Also a Mishnah Masechta Machshirin. I think Perek. Where's this Mishnah? Perek Vav Mishnah Aleph. I think it's Perek Vav Mishnah Gimel or something. I use my grandfather's Mishnayos. I learned from my grandfather's Mishnayos. Zeta from Babble on Talmud. So I learned from his Mishnayos. He has a paper clip for some reason. He's got a paper clip on. It's interesting using Zeta's Mishnayos. For example, I leave it as is. I leave everything in the Mishnayos as is, even though it's a little bit not convenient. But I leave his Mishnayos as is. He's got all sorts of things in there that can fall out, but I keep it as I got it. And so, for example, Zeta always put like some kind of covering on the book that he was learning. So like his art scroll Gemaras, whatever art scroll Gemara he was learning, he would like make like a paper bag cover and he would put it on that one. I always thought that all of his Gemaras had the paper bag covering because always the Gemara that I saw had a paper bag covering. No, he would take it off of one book and put it on the book that he was learning. Anyways, so the second book of Kodshim, of Mishnayos Kodshim, in the Kahati Mishnayos that I've been using, had a cover on it. So that must have been what I don't know. I think I'm like a historian over here trying to figure out the past. It could be that he was learning Kodshim, Mishnayos Kodshim when he passed away. I don't know. Al Kaponim, I left the book cover on there, and Zeta has a paper clip on Perek Daled Mishnah Vav. I think it's Perek Daled Mishnah Vav of, what was it, Gimel? I can't remember. What did I just say? Perek Vav, I think Mishnah Gimel or something. I have to look it up already. Of Masechta Machshirin, which is that Mishnah with the 7 liquids. I mean, it's a pretty important Mishnah. Al Kaponim. Anyways, this is Perek Vav Mishnah Aleph. And, right, so being Machshir the Kabel Tumah. So the food that's been disconnected from the ground, only once it's come in contact with water, with one of the liquids, with one of the 7 liquids, only then does it become Mukhshir lekabel tumah. I believe it's any of the 7 liquids. Only then does it become Mukhshir lekabel tumah. Then if a dead sheretz falls on it, even once it's dried, even once the food has dried, it will be Mekabel tumah, it will become a Rishon letumah. Now, additionally, and this is important, it only is Mukhshir lekabel tumah if you had wanted for it to become, right, the nichalate, right? If you wanted it to come in contact with the liquid, but as we're going to see in a minute, if like you left fruit on the roof and then overnight dew got on it, but you didn't want the dew to get on it, so that would not be machshir lekabel tumah. Okay, here we go. So basically, point being, food that's been disconnected from the ground needs to come in contact with a liquid, and only then does it become mukhshir lekabel tumah. So that then, if like a sheretz, for example, falls on it, so then it will become a rishon letumah. Now, where were we? So Rabbi Yochanan already answered his question about when there was an action but no broadcasting of no verbalizing of the intention. This nam we learned in a Mishnah Machshirin, Hamayle Peiroisav Lagog Mipnei Aknima. If a person's fruits were getting bugs in them, so he brought them up to the roof. For some reason, bringing them up to the roof would help with this issue. Okay, so he brought them up to the roof. Just in order to prevent bugs. The Yared Aleim Tal, then I guess overnight probably, dew fell onto these fruits, and now they're wet. And now they are wet. Einon b'chiyuton, they would not be mukhshel l'kabel tumah. That would not. Kiyutan is a reference to the pasuk that talks about being mukhshel l'kabel tumah. They would not be mukhshel l'kabel tumah because he didn't want the dew to get on the fruits per se. He brought up the fruits to the roof so that that would help with the bug issue. The fact that overnight dew got on the fruits, he doesn't necessarily want that, and therefore they are not mukhshel l'kabel tumah. If you would wash the fruit, for example, okay, you want to wash the fruit, then it will be mukhshel l'kabel tumah. But dew just got on it, it's not mukhshel l'kabel tumah. Ve'im niskavin l'chach, but if he had kavanah, say he said, "Oh wow, I'm so happy, dew got on the fruits. That's good. It'll give it a little bit of a bath. Amazing. I'm so happy right now." Well, then his kavanah alone would be enough to now these fruits would be mukhshel l'kabel tumah. So arein b'chiyutan they would be mukhshel l'kabel tumah. Helum cheirish shorta v'kotin. But what if the person who brought them up to the roof was a cheirish, a shorta, or the case we've been discussing, a kohen? So a kohen brought up these fruits to the roof, and the roof was dry at the time. And then overnight they got dew on them. Even though the kohen says, "Oh wow, I'm so happy, dew got on these fruits," that is irrelevant because that would just be machshava. And as we know, and we'll see in a second in this Mishnah as well, machshava alone for a kohen is insufficient. Einon b'chiyuton, it's not b'chiyuton mipnei sheyesh len maise vein len machshava, because when it comes to cheirish shorta v'kohen, they have maise, but they don't have machshava. Let's go weiter. The Omer Rabbi Yochanan, it says the holy Rabbi Yochanan, lo shanu ela shelo hipech boen. That's only that the cheirish shorta v'kohen. Let's talk about the kohen. That the kohen didn't flip over the fruits so that the dew can now get on the other side. Aval hipech boen hareze b'chiyuton. But if he flipped them over, then it is b'chiyuton. Meaning, says Rabbi Yochanan, that when the Mishnah says that by the kohen, these fruits are not mukhshel l'kabel tumah, that's because all he did, the kohen goes up, he sees that that dew got on the fruits, he says, "Wow, I'm so happy that dew got on the fruit." But that's just machshava alone. And the Mishnah, as we know from the Mishnah Machshirin, as well as the Mishnah in Kalim that we learned earlier with the acorns, machshava alone is insufficient. Rabbi Yochanan says that, however, if it was not machshava alone, what if the kohen started flipping over the fruits so that now the other side would get dew on them? So what's he doing? Clearly he is he's demonstrating with his actions that he's flipping over the fruits that he wants this mashke, this dew, to get on the fruits. So then they are mukhshel l'kabel tumah. Now here is the thing, friends. Rabbi Yochanan is not talking about a scenario where the kohen flipped over all the fruit and also said that I'm flipping over the fruit because I want them to get dew on them. If he was doing that, we have to know if when I say dew, I'm talking about dew or talking about dew. I'll leave that up to you. So Rabbi Yochanan would not have to tell us that in a scenario that he was flipping over the fruits so that they will get dew on them, and he's also saying, I'm doing this so that they will get dew on them, I don't need Rabbi Yochanan for that. That would be the case of Maaseh. So what's Rabbi Yochanan saying when he says that, and if the miner flipped it over so that dew will get on them, so then it will be Mukshel Kabul Tumah. We only need Rabbi Yochanan to tell us a chiddush. What's that chiddush? Is that even though he didn't say anything, it's still Mukshel Kabul Tumah. Because obviously we already know, if he was flipping over the fruits so that dew gets on them, and he says, I'm doing this so that dew gets on them, obviously that's Maaseh. And Ketanim have Maaseh. It will be Mukshel Kabul Tumah. And if all he says is, wow, I'm so happy that dew got on these fruits, but he didn't actually do anything, that's machshava alone. That's insufficient. Comes Rabbi Yochanan to say that even in a scenario where he flipped over the fruits so that dew will get on the other side, but didn't say anything, it's still Mukshel Kabul Tumah. So we have our answer. What would Rabbi Yochanan say in a scenario where he took an action but didn't broadcast his kavanah? It would work. It would be a proper. We would treat it as being significant. So again, what is Rabbi Yochanan pondering about? And for the Gemara, this is what Rabbi Yochanan was pondering about. The Oraisa de Rabbanon. Rabbi Yochanan was wondering, would that be the Oraisa de Rabbanon? That sure, if this kohen flips over these fruits so that, right, demonstrating that he would like for dew to get on the other side, and we're saying even though he didn't say anything, there will be Mukshel Kabul Tumah. Midaraisa or Midarabanan? That's what Rabbi Yochanan is wondering. Midaraisa or Midarabanan? What's the nafkamina? Well, here we're being machmir. Here we're being l'chumra. To say, well, now they're Mukshel Kabul Tumah. If a dead sheretz touches it, we're going to have to treat them like it's tummy. Okay, so here by saying that it's Mukshel Kabul Tumah, so we're being machmir. Fine, no big deal. It's a chumrah. But what about the animal in the south of the Azara? Right? If we carry over this principle, so if this miner, goes to the animal in the south of the Azara, then moves it to the north of the Azara, and slaughters the animal without saying anything, so if we're saying mid'oraisa, that's valid, well then that means the kosher shechitah. And the ola will be ola l'bayil m'shem chova. Right, so if we say that that's valid mid'oraisa, so then so it works bein the kula, bein the chumrah, bein the kula. So also by the korban, we'll say it's a valid korban. But if we say it's only midrabanan, so maybe what we're saying is that we'll be stringent by machshirin and say that it's Mukshel Kabul Tumah, but maybe we'd have to be stringent, where we'll be lenient. No, we would be stringent by machshirin, but we would be unable to be lenient, right, to say that the korban is kosher. We would be unable to say that if it's only midrabanan. That is what Rabbi Yochanan is pondering. That when it comes to the scenario where the actions show the kavanah, but he never actually broadcasts explicitly the kavanah, is that relevant midoraisa or just midrabanan? Can we say lekula or just lechumra? Rav Nachman bar Yitzchok masnei achi. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchok also discusses this sugya of Rabbi Yochanan, but in the following way. Rabbi Chia bar Abba says, Rabbi Chia bar Abba by Rabbi Yochanan was wondering, Kohen yesh lo maaseh or ein lo maaseh? Does a kohen have maaseh or not? Rabbi Ami says to Rabbi Chia bar Abba, v'tibai le machshava. Why is Rabbi Yochanan specifically asking about maaseh? Why not ask about machshava? Mashna machshava dilo kami ba'ya le. Why did Rabbi Yochanan not ask about machshava? This not because the Mishnah says, I imagine either in Kalim or in Machshirin, Ein lohem machshava, that Kohanim don't have machshava. That's why he didn't ask about it. He knows it from the Mishnah. Ein lohem machshava. Maaseh nami lo tiba ilay. This nan yesh lohem machshava. Maaseh. So then Rabbi Yochanan shouldn't have to ask about Maaseh either, because in the same Mishnah where it says that they don't have machshava, it says that they do have Maaseh. So what's the shaila? What Rabbi Yochanan was asking was de oraisa or de rabbanon. He was asking, do ka'ins, when the Mishnah says that a ka'in does have maiseh, is that midoraisa or midorabanan ufashit? And Rabbi Yochanan answered the following, and here comes the answer to all of our questions. Yesh len maiseh afilu midoraisa. When the Mishnah says that ka'ins have maiseh, that when, for example, in the case of the korban, he's bringing the animal from the south to the north, and he's saying at the same time, not only is he showing that it's going to be an ola by bringing it from the south to the north, but he's also saying, I'm going to slaughter it as an ola. So that's maise and that's midoraisa. It's kosher even midoraisa. Ein len machshava vafilu midorabanan. Now, if the animal was already in the north of the Azara and he simply did a shechitah like every other shechitah, there was nothing unique about that shechitah, and he says, I'm doing this as a korban ola, so that's machshava alone, there's no unique maise, well then it's irrelevant. It's not even relevant midorabanan. It's completely irrelevant. Machshavto nikeres mitoch maisav. Now, what about the scenario where, for example, he brings the animal from the south of the Azara to the north of the Azara? But, right, so he's demonstrating that he has intention for an olah, but he never says that. Or in the case of the fruits, he flips over all the fruits so that dew will get on both sides, but he doesn't say that that's what he's doing. So midoraisa ein lo, midorabanan yesh lo. So midoraisa, it's irrelevant. Midorabanan, however, it's relevant. So in the case of machshirin, in the case of flipping over the fruits, we'll say, okay, it's relevant. They're mukhshal l'kabatuma, we're being stringent. We'll say it's now mukhshal l'kabatuma. If a dead sheretz falls on them, they'll be tummy. But not midoraisa. And we will not say that this korban ola is a kosher korban ola. Well, it'll be kosher, but it won't be ola b'al b'shem chova. In a scenario where the ka'in brought the animal from the south to the north, but didn't say that he was doing it l'shem ola. Givaldig. Okay. That be'etzem wraps up that big sugya from today. Now we just have a few more lines until we get to the next Mishnah. Ba'amine Shmuel me'Ravuna. Shmuel asked a kasha to Ravuna. Interesting shaila why Shmuel is asking a question to Ravuna. Tosfos is there's a Tosfos here that I don't quite understand. But Etzem Tosfos is asking like, wait, why would Shmuel be asking Ravuna a question? Isn't Ravuna younger than Shmuel? And anyways, let's leave it at that. It's an interesting shaila. Why is Shmuel asking a question from Ravuna? Okay. Minalim is asek bekachim shu pasul. Okay, how do we know that misasek bekachim is pasul? The way Rashi explains this is that if a person, let's say, has a shechitah knife in his hand, and he lifts up his hand, he's like, oh, okay, did not know that there was a goat right there. And, okay, looks like it's kosher. Good slice. A complete fluke. He just lifted up his hand. All of a sudden, there's blood gushing everywhere. And, mamish, perfect slice. Kosher shechitah. So the shaila is, how do you know that if we're talking about korbanis, it's possible? That says you will slaughter the bakar. You have to have a shechitah with the intention of it being a shechitah, not a fluke. Omar lo. So Shmuel says, Zobi adenu he la'akiv minayin. Yeah, sure, but how do we know that? Not just that it should be this way, but that it must be this way. So amle letzonechem tizbachu ledaitchem zvochu. That when it says letzonechem tizbachu, it means you have to slaughter it with knowledge, with da'as. You can't simply, after the fact, realize oh, great, apparently I just slaughtered an animal. No, that would not work, particularly when it comes to kodshin. Tosfos Taka asks the question, he says that even by shechita, if it was a complete fluke, bichlal, so then it wouldn't work by shechita either. So you at least have to have, Tosfos says you at least have to have kavanah to be, what is it? What does Rashi say? Okay. The b'chulin kosher. Tosfos says that at least you have to have kavanah to be cutting open the pipes, even if you don't necessarily have kavanah for zvicha. I don't know, maybe you were demonstrating something or something. But anyways, so by regular korban, it would be a kosher shechitah nonetheless, but not by korbanos. That's what Tosfos says. Now we get up to the next section of today's daf, Shechitah of an oved kochavim. Very interesting shaila. So, can a non-Jew do shechitah? What do you think? Shechitah oved kochavim nevelu metama b'masa, says the Mishnah that the slaughter of an oved kochavim, Shechitah oved kochavim, an oved kochavim who does shechitah, nevela, the result is a nevela. Umetama b'masa, and it's metama b'masa. What does that mean? I actually didn't quite understand the extent of being metama b'masa until just the other day, until like 2 days ago. Which is why I'm excited to learn Mishnayos Tyrus, because you can only get so far learning like Tyrus from like Shnai Mikra. Akoponim. So nevela is an avatuma. By the way, it's from the first parak of Masechta Kelim. If you're wondering, if you want to check out if you want to like do a deep dive into Tumah and Taira, and like different levels of Tumah and their nafkaminas, the first parak of Masechta Kelim, which is also the first parak of all of Mishnayos of Seder Tyrus, really does like somewhat of like a deep dive into, it's almost like an introduction of sorts to Tyrus. It's not quick. It takes time, but it's pretty good. So this is there, which helps all of us here on Daf Yud Gimel of Masechta Chullin understand this Mishnah better. So nevela is an avatuma, and as an avatuma, if somebody touches nevela, so they become a rishon l'tuma, which means they have to go to the mikvah. Okay. Now there's something interesting about nevela, which is not only is it metami b'maga if you touch it, but also b'masa. Let's say you are walking down the street or something, and you see a shopping bag, and in the shopping bag there is a steak, and that steak happens to be nevela, and or a roast or something, and you pick up the shopping bag with the roast in it, and it's nevela. You're carrying nevela. So you now, even though you didn't touch the nevela, you didn't touch the meat, but you picked up a bag, you're carrying it. So you now become tameh, you become rishon l'tumah. As do your clothing also becomes tameh. And not only that, but any vessels that you touch, any clothing that you touch, if you tap your friend on the back, his clothing is now going to become tameh. If you pick up I don't know what you might pick up. If you pick up a glass cup, or let's say a wood cup or whatever, because if it's klecheres, that's apparently an exception. But so just to clarify, if you tap your friend on the back, your friend does not become tameh, but his shirt will. And if you pick up a vessel, if you pick up a cup, so long as you're holding the nevela, so long as you're holding the shopping bag with the nevela, so it'll make you tameh. Even once you put down the bag, you're now tameh, your clothes are tameh. But anything that you touched while you were carrying that bag, any kalim, so any clothing, any vessels, whatever that you picked up, as long as they're not earthenware vessels, they will also become tameh as well. Very interesting halacha when it comes to tumas masa. I didn't know the extent of that. I just thought you pick it up and you become tameh as well just by carrying it. But it's more than that. You become tameh. Your clothing becomes tameh. Any clothing you touch while you're carrying it, or vessels you touch, also become tameh. Very interesting halacha. Okay, so get back to kind of our topic at hand. If an oved kochavim, if a non-Jew slaughters meat, that meat is nevela, and as nevela, it's mitameh b'masa. Now, b'maga and b'masa. Says the Gemara, nevela in Isra Anoya lo. So the Gemara is medayek that the meat that if an oved kochavim slaughters an animal, so it's nevela now, but nevela is mutar ba'ano. I think it's taka machlokes in Masechta Avodah Zarah maybe, but we're saying that it's nevela, but it is mutar ba'ano. Right, nevela in Isra Anoya lo, but it's not asur ba'ano. Nevela, let's assume nevela, No. I think everyone agrees that nevela is mutter bano. I think maybe there's a different shaila in. I think maybe in. I don't remember. I have to look it up. It was a Gemara that we had in Shechitah Avodah Zarah, but it says oh machor. There's a whole shaila about ger toshav versus nachri, right? Oh machor lenochri. Lager asher b'sharecha terchalenu oh machor lenachri. I think. Okay, I think maybe that was the machlekes. But anyways, it's mutter bano. So we're saying it is nevela, it's mitam and everything, but it's mutar bano. Now, man tana. So who is the author of our Mishnah? The author of our Mishnah is not Rabbi Eliezer. The Rabbi Eliezer or Omar Stam Machshavas Oved kochavim, because Rabbi Eliezer's opinion is that the default machshave of an oved kochavim is for avodas kochavim, i.e., the assumption is, according to Rabbi Eliezer, that the oved kochavim would have slaughtered this animal with the intention of avodah zarah. And if that's the case, it is osur ba'ano. Rabbi Ami Amarna says, Rabbi Ami, Hachi Ketani, this is what the Mishnah is saying. Now, Rabbi Ami, to point out, does not disagree with the previous analysis. He agrees, sure, the Mishnah is not Rabbi Eliezer's opinion. Okay, moving on. Shchitas oved kochavim nevela, ha-demin la'avodas kochavim. The shchita of a oved kochavim, we're saying, is nevela, but it's mutar bano. However, a min, and we're assuming that we're talking about a min who's a Jew. Rashi on the next page, on Yud Gimel Amud Beis, describes a min as, and the second Rashi on Yud Gimel Amud Beis describes a min as ze ha'oduk ba'avodas kochavim kigon komer. This is somebody who's mamish steeped in avodah zarah, like a galach, like a priest for avodah zarah. Umin Yisrael chomer mimumar la'avodas kochavim. A Jew who's a min is worse than a mumar la'avodas kochavim. Shamin aduk ba v'chol machshavo savla. A min is like a galach for avodah zarah. He's mamish. He lives and breathes avodah zarah. A mumar la'avodas kochavim means somebody who does avodah zarah, fine, beseder. But a min is mamish. He loves it. Now, so says Rabbi Ami, Achi Katani. This is what the Mishnah is saying. Shchitas oved kochavim nevela ha-demin la'avodas kochavim. But the shchita of a min, a Jew who loves and loves and loves, he chalishes for avodah zarah, so then his shchita will be for avodah zarah, kamuvan, and it will be asur ba'ano. Tanina la d'tana rabbanan. Our Mishnah is therefore expressing that which we learned in a brisa. Shchitas min, the shchita of a min la'avodas kochavim is for avodah zarah. Pito is bright, is bread. Paskusi is the bread of kusim, and the Mishnah in Masechta Shvius says that the bread of kusim is like the flesh of hogs, of pig. That's bad. Yenu yei nesech, and his wine is yei nesech. Svarav, his books are sifrei kusmin. Says Rashi, kusmin are the nevi'ei Baal. They have to be burnt. Peros of tvalin, his fruit is tevel. V'eshomim af banov mamzer, and some say even his kids are mamzers. V'tanakama ishtolo mafker, and according to Tanakama, who says that the one who did not say that the kids are mamzers, that's because he would not be mafker his wife. There's no reason to assume that his kids are mamzers. Okay, fine. Okay, so a yid who's a min is a pretty mudna guy. We said earlier, shchitas oved kochavim nevela. We said that the shchita of an oved kochavim is nevela. V'nechol shem minu, but maybe he's a min. How do you know that this oved kochavim is not a min? A galach. Amar Rabbi Avua, ein minin beumis oved kochavim. There are no mins by the umis of the kochavim, by the non-Jews. There are no mins by the non-Jews. What do you mean there's no mins? Of course, there's no galach. Of course, there's a galach. So, ema ein rov of the kochavim. Minin, most non-Jews are not galachs, are not minim. So, the Amar Rabbi Chia Bar Abba, like Rabbi Chia Bar Abba says in Rabbi Yochanan, Nachrim shebechutz la'aretz, the Gentiles in or outside of Eretz Yisrael, lav oved avodas kochavim, they don't really serve avodah zarah. Ella minig avasem biadein. They just kind of inherit it from their fathers. They're not like particularly practicing really religious oved kochavim. Maybe they do oved avodah zarah, whatever here and there, but they're not. They don't live it, and they're not like ultra religious. I don't know. I'm not going to comment on other religions and stuff. I don't know that much about them, but I get the impression that certainly not going to comment on Judaism. But look, I mean, there are billions and billions of people in this world. I get the feeling, this is like we were talking about yesterday, it's a ruba de lesa kamon. I can't quantify it. I don't know how to quantify this. I get the feeling like most people belong to some or other religion. Now, how that affects their day-to-day life, there's like billions of Muslims, there's billions of Christians, there's, all sorts of other people. But does that mean that they're all like super practicing and stuff? I mean, there's also a lot of Jews. Not all, there's levels within Jews as well. But the point I'm making is that yeah, I belong to this particular religion. Do I practice intensely? I don't know, whatever. I'm that religion, my parents are that religion, I'm part of that religion, whatever. So therefore we're saying that Nachrim shebechutz laretz lav ovdei kochavim hein ela minig avasem biadein. They're just like do whatever their fathers did, but they aren't. Most of them are not mins. Amar of Yosef bar Manyomi, Amar of Nachman, ein minin beumis ovdei kochavim. Says of Yosef bar Manyomi of Nachman that there are no mins by the Gentiles. Lamai, what does it mean that there's no min? What does that mean? Ilema l'shchita. If it means when it comes to shchita, that there, I guess that their shchita, I guess would not be also by no. I mean, they would still not be Jewish, so it would still be nevela, I imagine. But I guess it would not be also by no. Hasa shchitas min di Yisrael amar asira. Well, if the shchita of a Jewish min is also by no, certainly the shchita of a non-Jewish min would be asur b'ano. Ela the moridin, to giving a nudge into a pit. Hashta di Yisrael moridin dav kochavim mibaya. If a Jewish min, we would give as somebody said recently, a love tap into the pit. So if we do that for a Jewish min, we would do it for a non-Jewish min. Although I do see that there is a note here that points us to a chazon ish that I tried to look at it on Sefaria, but apparently they don't have chazon ish on Sefaria. But I before anybody gives a love tap to anybody into a pit, I would study the sugya properly first. Omer of Ukva bar Chomo, it says of Ukva bar Chomo the kabel man korban. Okay, here we go. It's about being makabel a korban. The sign is willing to buy some mikem. We saw this the other day. V'lo kulchem lotzi hamumar, that the pasuk says adam kiakriv mikem, from you. We don't accept korbanos from all yidden. Lotzi as hamumar, we don't accept korbanos from mummers, and certainly not from minim. Mikem bochem chilakti v'lo b'ovdei kochavim, and this pasuk is specifically by the korbanos of yidden, as we're going to see in a minute that non-Jews also offer korbanos. However, when it says mikem, from you, to say not all yidden can bring korbanos, right? Some of them can't bring korbanos, not mumers, I imagine not means either. These distinctions are only for yidden. V'lo b'ovdei kochavim. But ovdei kochavim, we don't have such distinctions. And therefore, when we're saying that ein minim b'umas oved kochavim, there are no mins by the oved kochavim, what it means is that if a min, who's an oved kochavim, wants to offer a sacrifice in the temple, we're not going to say, you're a min, we won't accept it. No, we will accept it. There's no mins when it comes to the korbanos of oved kochavim, we'll accept it nonetheless. Mimai, how do we know that this is what it means? That we limit the korbanos of yidden, but we accept all korbanos of non-Jews. Maybe it's the opposite. We limit the korbanos of, well, not quite the opposite, but meaning, maybe what it's saying is that while we limit the korbanos of Yidden, we won't accept the korban of a mummer, of a min. However, when it comes to non-Jews, we don't accept any of them, maybe. Maybe saying when it comes to the Yidden, only accept korbanos from tzaddikim, not from rishoyim, meaning don't accept from mummers, don't accept from minim. Maybe by oved kochavim we don't accept any at all from them. No. The Sanya, we're learning a brayso ish. Ish. Why does the pasuk say ish twice? Right? Ish mi beis Yisrael minager b'Yisrael asher Yaakov korbano, etc. Why does it say ish? L'rabos oved kochavim shenodim nedarim nedavos Yisrael. It teaches that we do accept korbanos from ovdei kochavim. So we accept kavanas from ovdei kochavim, and we make no distinctions. Therefore, when we say that there's no minim by ovdei kochavim, means that there's no significance given to the fact that a particular ovdei kochavim is a min when it comes to accepting korbanos from them. If they want to bring a korban, they'll bring a korban. Now, the Mishnah said umitama b'masa. The Mishnah had said that if an ovdei kochavim slaughters, so the animal is nevela and it's mitama b'masa. Why do you have to say it's mitama b'masa? Just say it's nevela. And I'll open up the Chumash. Where was this pasuk about nevela? I don't remember where it was. I'll open up a Chumash. So what's this? In Vayikra? Okay. Anyways, I'll open up a Chumash. First, I'll figure out where I'm supposed to open up to, but I'll open up a Chumash, and I will look up the halachas of nevela. Say it's mitami b'masa. V'anugeh b'nevlasim, v'anoses nevlasim. The point I'm making is the Mishnah just needs to say that the Shechitah of oved kochavim is nevela. That's it. I know the halachas is nevela. It's mitami b'maga, mitami b'masa. It's navatuma. Why does the Mishnah need to say specifically that it's mitami b'masa? Pshita, it's obvious that it's mitami b'masa. Came to nevela. Once we're saying already it's nevela, mitami b'masa. Of course, it's mitami b'masa, like all nevela. On my Rav, it says Rav Achikatani. This is what it's saying. Zo mitama b'masa. You can add a few words. Ve'ena mitama b'oil. That when it comes to the Shechitah of an oved kochavim, yes, it's mitami b'masa. It is not, however, mitami b'oil. Ve'yesh l'cha acheres she mitama afilu b'oil. But there is a different case where it's mitami even b'oil ve'ezo. And what is that? Zo tikroves avodas kochavim. An animal offered for avodah zarah is mitame even ba'oil. Like Rabbi ben Beser, I'm sorry, like Rabbi ben Beser, that we'll see his opinion soon. Those who say, Amar Rav, says Rav Achikatani, this is what's saying, Zo mitame b'masa, v'yesh chacher she kazosh mitame b'masa v'ena mitame ba'oil. That are those who say, that says Rav, that the Shechitah of an oved kochavim is mitame b'masa, but not mitame ba'oil. And there's another example that also is mitame b'masa and not mitame ba'oil. Ve'ezo, what is that? Zotikrovas avodas kochavim. An animal slaughtered for avodah zarah. Udilok Rabbi ben Beser, and that would be unlike Rabbi ben Beser, because Rabbi ben Beser says that tikrovas avodas kochavim is mitame ba'oil. The sign that we learn in the Brayso of Rabbi ben Beser Omer, minayin the tikrovas avodas kochavim she mitame ba'oil. How to know that an animal slaughtered for avodah zarah is mitame even ba'oil? It has all sorts of implications, but too much oil. Shenemar vayitzamdu levapor vayochlu zivchei mesim, that they were involved in Baal Peor and avodah zarah, and they were eating the offerings of the dead. Ma mace mitame ba'oil after kovis avodas kochavim mitame ba'oil, just like a mace, just like a corpse is mitame ba'oil. In whether you make an oil over it, or it's an oil over you, or you're in the same oil as it, but it will be mitame ba'oil. So also zivchei avodah zarah tikrovas avodas kochavim is also mitame ba'oil according to Rabbi ben Beser. And for the final little nugget of today's daf, we get to a mishnah at the end of the daf. Ashoichet balayla, one who slaughters at night. V'chein asuma sheshachat, or a blind person who slaughters. In both cases, you will be unable to see. Shechitah ksher, nonetheless. The Shechitah is kshera, obviously as long as it was done properly. Checked and whatever. Says the Gemara, Shoichet di'evid in chatchila. We say hashochet, one who does slaughter. That sounds like b'di'evid. We're not saying slaughter. We're saying if you did slaughter. Sounds like b'di'evid. V'aminu, we have a contradiction. Le'olam shoichatin, no, shecht. Bein bayom during the day, bein balayla at night, bein baresh hagag, bein baresh hasfina on top of a roof, on the top of a boat. Go for it. Lichatchila. Republic shavuka kinegdo. Republic says, yeah, it's lichatchila when you have proper lighting. Then it's lichatchila, day, night, go for it. If you don't have proper lighting, then it's b'diavad. Rav Ashi Dekanami says, Rav Ashi can also infer this, Dekatani Ahasam, Dumya Diyom, V'acha Dumya Disuma Shmamina. It also makes sense because if you look in that Brisa, we're saying, Bein Ba Yom Uvein Balayla, that Laila is compared to the day, where there's proper lighting. Whereas in our Mishnah, Balayla is compared to Asuma, somebody who, Kamavan, doesn't have proper vision. So therefore, we're saying if it is with proper lighting, you could slaughter even at night. Without proper lighting, it's only bidi eved. Friends, that was Daf Yud Gimel, Daf 13 of Masechta Chullin. On Daf 13 of Masechta Chullin, we learned about determining kavanah for minors. We said action plus intention, valid midaraisa. That if you have this kid who moves the animal from the south to the north, and he says, I'm doing this because I'm going to slaughter as a korban ola, kosher midoraisa. Intention alone, if the animal's already in the north, for example, and he says, I'm going to now slaughter for a korban ola, and he slaughters, but there's nothing unique about the shechitah, well then, intention alone is insufficient. Even midorabanan, it's insufficient. And what about action without intention? Right? If he brings the animal from the south to the north, but doesn't say that he's doing this because he intends to slaughter the animal as an ola, valid midrabanan, which means that by the ola it wouldn't work because it's only valid midrabanan. We can't assume that the shechitah was bikavanah and whoever the animal is being offered for is going to have to bring a different animal. Right? It would be kosher, but shelo ola valid b'shem chova. When it comes, however, for example, to like the fruits and the dew, we'll say, okay, they will be mukshel l'kabel toma, which is l'chumra. Shechitah of an oved kochavim, we say it's nevela, and we said the shechitah of a min is going to be aser ba'ana'ah, because it will be avodah zarah. And we said shechitah at night, we said lichatchila, it's if it's with a torch, if it's properly lit, then it's lichatchila. If it's not properly lit, then it's only b'diavad. Friends, have an awesome day. Cheers.